Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate everybody for being here today. This is a beautiful occasion where I look across this room and see nothing but scholarly people here. And this topic is so befitting for everything that's happening right now in the nursing field. I was challenged a few years ago with my DNP project to talk about the importance of mentorship, but most importantly, the importance of mentorship as it deals with novice nurses. My name is Dr. Rodney Duckett. I am from Temple, Texas. I work for Central Texas Veteran Healthcare Services, which is one of the largest VAs in the world. Most importantly, we're right down the road from Fort Hood, which is one of the largest institutions in the world. A majority of the population of vets retire in Texas. Why? Because the cost of living is cheap, and they have this beautiful hospital right down the road. So I was challenged with the task to establish a structured mentorship program for novice nurse practitioners graduating. Mentorship. I pose a question to you. What is the largest room in the world? Now, I want you to take a moment to think about that. Now, let me talk to you about mentorship. Everybody knows what mentorship is all about. Everybody at one time been a mentee or a mentor. But the unique thing about mentorship is this. It predates us by millenniums. My first degree is in archaeology and anthropology, so I'm going to take you through a quick history lesson so you can understand mentorship. Arguably, factual, and proof, all colleges and universities come from Africa. It's documented. People travel to the tree of life to learn. Some of the greatest philosophers we know is Socrates. He studied in Africa. As he traveled back to Greece, he educated Plato. Plato, in return, took a young Aristotle, and Aristotle, in return, took a very robust and vibrant Alexander the Great. And through Alexander the Great, he attempted to take over the world. Nursing is not about taking over the world. Nursing is more about healing process and how we develop a healing process. Mentorship for us is nothing more but a conveyor belt. We're all about improving the process. And right now, as we sit into this program and we notice this conference, it's all about how we are developing ourselves within this program. Objectives is simple. We're going to talk about readiness for practice. We're going to talk about competency to get ready for practice. And then we're going to also talk about how we can bridge the gaps from the program to the practice, which is very important. Pretty much what I'm going to talk about, and we're going to go through the background. We're going to go through the purpose, the summary of evidence, the interventions that we're going to talk about. In addition, we're going to talk about the results and the implements of practice and sustainability. So, Central Texas Veteran Healthcare Services had a mentorship program when I first got there. The problem that they had was the mentorship program was around for 2013. They're having 7 mentors, but no mentees for approximately 8 to 9 years. No one signed up for the program. It was ready and available. The program was broken. My job was to go in to fix this program, to stand this program up, because the problem was they had no structured program. Now, I want you to understand Texas. It's a big state. It's actually a country in Africa if you want to be centered about it. Texas is humongous if you've ever been there. 254 counties in the state of Texas. Out of those 254 counties in the state of Texas, 185 of those counties are without mental health and primary care services. 185. We're talking about almost 70% of the counties in Texas, people don't have access to care, period. VA is different. We take care of our veterans. So at the Veteran Services Center that I work at, there's approximately 102 nurse practitioners that's there, but there's also one main center, one acute psychiatric center, a blind rehab, a domiciliary for substance abuse, a PTSD center, a community living center, and about 7 or 8 CBOCs that are remote clinics that are out there where people can go to. It is a big, clumsy system, and my job was to try to pull all that together and actually initiate some mentorship for all of them. The purpose, I'm going to stand up a structured mentorship program within the system. Sorry, I keep turning my back because I can't see. So with everything, I'm not going to bore you with evidence. I had about 31 pieces of evidence, but I've narrowed it down to some of the things that I feel that could be beneficial to you. Faraz in 2005 looked at job acquisition, characteristics of the individual, and how that road transition would come about. And what he discovered that was a burnout within the first year of primary care. And he looked at some choke points, how to improve it. The next study that we have here was Gazaway. Gazaway was very, very interesting. So what made Gazaway interesting was this right here. He looked at the experience of the RN and how that experience transitions over to being a nurse practitioner. What he discovered is that experience is very valuable and important, but as we know, it's very hard to transition over with RN experience. So he said that there has to be some form of onboarding, there has to be some form of orientation, there has to be some form of mentorship. The next one was Hart and Bowman. This was an extensive study that ranged approximately 5 years, and what they've done is looked at 700 nurse practitioners, and they looked at true readiness for practice. True readiness for practice. And what those nurse practitioners said is this right here. Core, we got the core. We understand the core. Our choke points is this. We don't know about billing and coding. We didn't get enough X-ray interpretation or EK interpretation or ultrasound interpretation. So what we need is some additional training, and the best way he found out to do that is have set mentors. Now, my favorite one right here has nothing to do with nursing, but it has everything to do with nursing. This is Fleming 2013. As I was going through my research, I had to call him to ask, could I actually use this tool? He talked to me about 3 hours why it's so important for nurses to actually use this tool. He dealt with transitional research, and that transitional research pretty much said this. I'm going to take my most experienced transitional research, sir, and connect it to my least experienced novice transitional research. But what he said and what he understood is they can't go through those 6 competencies and those 26 mentoring skill levels. I have intentional mentors, but he was realizing that unintentional mentors were the ones that was actually helping them check the box. So what he discovered is you need both worlds. You need the intentional mentor, which is a primary that you sign up, and you need that unintentional mentor to help go ahead and conclude and check off those boxes. It was a wonderful study, and it's something that could be used for us on a day-to-day basis because those 6 competency levels are very important to us. We have competency, we have expectations, we have diversity, we have professional development. Those are very, very important aspects to a nurse practitioner as they're growing through that field. I'll be remiss if I don't mention her, correct? How can I not mention the theorist that's still alive today? The master teacher herself, novice to expert was the field. Novice to expert. This right here has been the chopping block for most of us in the nursing profession. But she didn't use anything new or any new technology. She just organized it better for us as nurses. So this is a confusing walk down memory lane. So when I looked at the program, I said, okay, I cannot change this big program, but what I can do is look at the mentors that were already in this program and assign new mentees that was hired on. But first I had to establish what was a good mentor in the VA system. I can have someone hired with approximately 29 years of training, skills, and experience. But if they never worked in the VA system, they're very clumsy, right? Because the VA system is vast. You go to one chart to open up another chart, to open up another chart, to forget that you're supposed to open up 2 or more charts before you open up that chart. So we needed someone to know how to navigate that actual system. So we had to look at people with 4 years experience. Why I say 4 years? Because if I go back to Dr. Benner, she says that when you get to the proficient and the expert, it's around 4 to 6 years. So right there is a good time to have a mentor to come in and get mentees and actually train them. Also, once we identified them, we sent out a letter saying, hey, this is what we're looking for. But we identified something that was different. This has nothing to do with their proficiency. That has little to do with your proficiency. Basically, what we're doing to have you establish a strategic relationship to show synergy between you two so that way you can help this person grow and develop their practice. Once we developed those, we took the new hires that was coming in. We had them meet with each other. We had them pair together. And the first thing that we wanted to do is look at short-term and long-term goals. But most importantly, we used a whole comprehensive sheet called the Centers of Excellence in Primary Care Education. It's a residency program that's used for residents and nurse practitioners that go through the program, but we wanted to see a whole comprehensive view of what they truly was having problems with. From there, we actually got them together. We made sure that they met once a month, and it was never the face-to-face because this was during COVID. We used a lot of virtual, we used a lot of hybrid, we used a lot of telephone calls, they used a lot of text message, but the idea was for them to meet and discuss their short-term and their long-term goals, and also those choke points. We wanted to make sure that the mentors was accessible and the mentees was accessible to them. And then at the end, what happened was something totally different. The mentees actually scored the mentors, because we found that that was very, very important for the mentors to actually know Were they on point? Were they on cue? Were they off track? What was their strengths and their weakness? Because again, it helps the mentee be able to evaluate their mentor, which is something that they will constantly be doing in their career path. So we looked at the results of this, and the results from it's a mentor competency assessment tool that was from Fleming's. The mentor competency tool pretty much looked at those 6 competencies that you've seen, that big flowing chart, and those 26 skills. And what that mentee done was rated his mentor on those 26 skills so that mentor can have the ability to correct and check itself and balance. So while that mentee was evaluating that mentor, we also seen an increase in the actual numbers for that mentees over the course of the last 90 days. There was a significant jump. Next, we looked at the program for the mentee satisfaction. Was they satisfied with their mentor? We seen an increase because what we done was we noticed the actual MCA that we were using was letting the mentors recorrect themselves, make those additional changes that they need to make, and pay close attention to what the mentees were saying, and we seen another jump in the course of those 90 days. And then next was the Centers of Excellence in Primary Care and Education, which was that comprehensive form. That comprehensive form, I found that was very, very important because that was the form that the actual mentees sat down and wrote out, talked about their strengths, talked about their weakness, and talked about things that they need to improve and how they need to improve from there. And what we discovered was each time they set their goals, they were actually pulling it from this actual research program that they had. So, implication to practice. As we know with the VA, everything is very, very complicated, but the one thing that I was getting after was I was trying to establish that I did not want to make a hard change. I wanted to make a very soft change. And what did I want to do is I want to raise the expectations of those mentees and mentors to establish those relationships. I want some synergy between those relationships and the dynamics of those relationships where they can bond together. But most importantly, I wanted to promote a successful transition to practice. Those were the 3 soft things that I wanted to promote, because to change anything in the VA is, goodness gracious. You can close your eyes, spin around, drown yourself, and it'll still be the same thing. So my goal was have these soft changes so that way the mentors and the mentees can get something out of it. So sustainability. Well, everything's still on the table now, but a few of the mentors and mentees that I actually talked to, we don't have intentional mentorship. They've tried to do intentional mentorship, it fails, but I've noticed the unintentional mentorship was the one that was very successful. Hey, there's something about you that I like. I've seen your documentation is awesome, or your documentation is lack of, and I want to show you how to improve. For myself, I found my documentation to be very weak. So the mentor that I work with says, I'm going to pull 5 of your charts, you pull 5 of your charts, we'll go ahead and sit there and edit them, and make our criticism about them, and we'll come together and talk. And I find over the course of the last 90 days, my charting has improved drastically just because of that. So sustainability, sometimes it's not about truly changing the program. It's sometimes just changing a few individuals to be a part of that program. So I look at the 11 mentees that went through the program, and most of those 11 mentees are still connected with their mentors in that program, and some of them mentors have actually retired from the program that still stay in contact with the mentees itself. So, I want to introduce you to my mentee. She's very young, she's not a nurse. I've been mentoring this young lady ever since she's been 6 years old. The reason why I have her here is because she's brought so much joy to my life. The first time that I actually met her, she says, Mr. Rodney Duckett, I want to write a book and I need your help. And I says, well, what do you need my help for? Well, I need to know how I need to write a book. You look like you know how to write a book. I've never written a book before, So we sat down with YouTube, we Googled a couple of things, we talked about it, we done an outline. I brought some few people in to write a book, and she wrote her first book on her own. But most importantly, she's written 4 books, and she's working on her 5th book. There's one book that's very, very important, and this one book that's very, very important is My Dad's Essential Worker. She wanted to figure out how could she give back to all the essential workers. Her father's a sanitation worker. She's seen the importance of every day her trash was picked up during COVID. Imagine if your trash wasn't picked up during COVID, she said. Imagine if the sanitation workers didn't push through that day. She talked about her experience in the hospital when she came to see me in one of my freestanding clinics that sometime I work at. She's like, what if the nurses didn't come to work? What if the doctors didn't come to work? I'll be sick and die. So mentors and mentees have a relationship that extends outside of this. So my little mentee says there's a QR code right here, and she wants you to buy some books. So make sure you buy her books, okay? I have to promote her because she told me to do that personally. So I asked Dr. McCamey, was that okay? So please purchase her book. She's a wonderful lady. But I'm going to tell you what's so important about her. The city of Killeen, Texas, honored her with a proclamation for Essential Workers Day on March the 17th. Mr. Rodney Duckett, I want to talk to the mayor to shut down the city for one day. Okay, we can make that happen. She done her own pitch. She had her own elevator pitch. She went in and she actually talked to the mayor. He gave her that day. He could not turn her down. So sometimes through the eyes of the youth, if they're guided in the right direction, they see things. What is the biggest loss to the nursing profession? The biggest loss to the nursing profession is this right here. There's approximately 4 to 5 million nurses in the U.S. The baby boomers are retiring. A third of them are retiring. You have 1.6 or 7 million that's walking out of the profession. It's not the body that walks out of the profession. It's the experience, it's the expertise, it's the leadership, and it's the mentorship. Now let me flip this on this side. It's football season. How many retired NFL players you know are in the locker room getting paid heavy just to motivate some of these young kids to play the football game? Why are we not retaining some of our retired nurses on the salary to make sure they mentor us and some of the younger nurse practitioners and educators and leaders that's coming in? Remember, nursing is only a seed which deposits a piece of you into your mentee that turns into a mentor that ultimately deposits a seed in someone else. You live on through your mentee. So with that being said, I would like to close this right now for any questions. This is my information right here. That's my big ugly picture that you see there. My name is Rodney Lamar Duckett. I'm from Central Texas, Temple, Texas. My email's on the bottom. That's my nonprofit. One thing I didn't tell you, I have a mentorship with nonprofit. I deal with juvenile delinquencies. I've been doing that for 25 years. That is actually my work. My job is just being a nurse practitioner. But my work is something totally different. My work I do for free because as a black male in America, I have a duty and an obligation to go back into the community and make sure that my young lions become mature and learn how to run their community the right way. So I challenge each one of you, if it's not nursing, do something out in the community sector to bring your expertise. Don't sit in the office. Don't play armchair quarterback. Get out, be a part of something to change. Each one of you guys, I learn a lot from Dr. McCamey, Dwayne up there. I learn a lot from a lot of people that's here. And there's a lot of people that's come to me and say, hey, I've learned a lot from you. And this is what this is all about. This is our scholarly moment. This is our moment of Socrates. This is our moment of Aristotle right here. This is our moment of Plato. And we have the opportunity to be like Alexander the Great and take over the nursing profession. Thank you.
We have time for about one and a half questions. Comment, Dr. McIntosh? Hold on. I can't come down fast enough.
Thank you. One of the things that you brought up is about the intentional mentorship and that we don't do that well. And I have to wonder if that's because there's a hierarchy with that and if it seems more intimidating to be in that relationship. Whereas the unintentional one seems more collegial.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of giving you feedback. You don't feel like I'm like over you, watching you, like the expectation is different. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
No, that's a wonderful question. And where I kind of got that from is I start watching my relationships with my physicians, my medical doctors, my DOs, and I notice they still have the same mentors from sometimes school. And their relationship is different. It's not one that you're doing wrong and let me show you how to correct it. It's one that this is your practice. and I'm going to advise you what I feel is best with your practice, but educate me and tell me what you're doing, and then show me, the actual summary of evidence, the evidence-based practice, that this is something that is good for the practice. So there is a dialogue, there's an educational dialogue that I notice, but sometimes nurses kind of shy away from the educational dialogue. Now, I want to tell you guys something. I want you to start thinking like this. Nursing is a profession. You have your own practice, we know. You're not a commodity, you're an asset, okay? Wherever you go, you're an asset. Means that you have a career. So if you're an asset and you have a career, guess what that means? That you set your own pay scale. No one should set a pay scale for you. Most doctors go in and do what? They negotiate their pay. Nurses are told, we're going to give you a slither of the pie, while sometimes the physicians get the whole cut of the pie, and we do most of the labor force. So you have to realize those relationships about how they better their profession. So that's why there's a difference. So we have to get out of the mindset, and I know nursing is kind of like the drill sergeant thing where we crack the whip sometimes and put them in cadence, and it's a good thing sometimes, but we got to keep in mind that we are a profession.
Thank you. You guys can connect with Dr. Duckett during lunch.
Yes, that sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.